All of our training has led us to this moment. It's not what we were expecting, but we might be the only thing that can stop the Bugmaster from amassing a spider battalion and wreaking havoc throughout the land. We don't know what to expect in Arok, so we have to be on guard. I've separated you into different units. Sir Gawain, John Conroy, and Kamikaze are the runners who will be carrying medical supplies and staying out of combat. If anyone gets critically wounded, these three are your guardian angels. Clark, Cyrus, and Green are part of the Rangers led by Mac. They'll be supporting the main troops from afar with their crossbows. The Shek platoon will work as one of the two samurai units, while the other is a combination of human and skeleton fighters. The others will stay on New Raleigh under Ryan's authority until we return. This is bigger than what our goals are. If we don't stop the Bugmaster, we don't know what might happen. We cannot fail. We won't fail. Let's move out. Why did the Bugmaster call to me? What did he mean by me being linked to him? Is it because I'm one of the lucky few who've ever come face to face with him and survived? I guess it doesn't really matter now. The crew moved at a steady pace westbound towards Arok. They needed to stay together as a single unit, so they couldn't move too quickly. It was a quiet, somber journey. Only the clatter of their march and the sounds of rain bouncing off their mail could be heard. Everyone was training to fight against the United Cities and Slavers Guild, not monsters like the Skin Spiders and Bugmaster. They're all familiar enough with Skin Spiders. They frequented the walls of New Raleigh from time to time, but nothing like the hordes from Rook's vision. They had to get to Arok before the Spiders did. And Rook tried to calm the nerves of their newer recruits. They were formidable fighters now, but horror stories about the Bugmaster were lingering on their minds. The only one who has seen the Bugmaster in person was Rook, and even then, it was a brief glance as he pilfered the map from the Bugmaster's treasure chest and barely escaped with his life. It didn't seem like enough reassurance. Regardless, if they weren't proactive on this assault, the Bugmaster's army would reach a critical mass that could potentially be unstoppable. They had to stop him before the Spiders could migrate to Arok. They traveled day and night before arriving at an abandoned stronghold called the Old Front Lines late into the night. The group took a few minutes to rest and collect themselves. They were right outside of Arok. They would use the darkness in their favor to try and sneak into Arok undetected. Swamp ninja tactics. Peering over the map, Jeb spotted a valley that was close to a lake that they could follow, which led them to a more open path to the Bugmaster's lair. Taking the path away from the Old Front Lines was the best plan. Rook could sense the tension rising in his men as they finally arrived at the outskirts of Arok. They still had a lot of ground to cover, so they continued moving along cautiously. The group stopped for a moment to check their surroundings. So far, things were still suspiciously silent. After a few minutes of rest, they proceeded onwards. They arrived at the base of the lake surrounding Arok and saw that the only way forward was to wade through the blood-red water. It was hard to cross with so many people with so much equipment. They were moving at a snail's pace. As they waded through the water, Tao shouted out a warning to everyone. Beyond the waters, they were coming. As the rain hammered the drenched soldiers, blurring their vision, they could barely make out that a pack of skin spiders were quickly approaching. The cover of darkness and rainfall wasn't enough to hide them. Skin spiders hunt by smell. They were racing to get to the shore before the spiders could cut them off. The shoreline was too steep, except for a small pathway further up. They pressed to get there, but the spiders poured around them, blocking their exit from the deep waters. The Shek warriors let out a fierce battle cry as they led the charge, spearheading an opening through the swarm, creating a small entry for them to get on shore and begin fighting back. Most of Rook's men were bottlenecked and trapped in the water as the spiders attacked. This wasn't going according to plan. Rook called out to everyone, telling them to fight their way to shore and protect their runners who were left vulnerable in this position. Sir Gawain was taken down as a skin spider latched onto his neck. He cried out until suddenly, Agnew hoisted him over their shoulder and bolted him to safety with the other runners. The Liberators' training paid off though. They were able to withstand the initial strike and continue pressing forward while their powerful armor absorbed the brunt of the spiders' attacks. Once the rest of the men made it to shore, they were able to clean up the rest of the spiders. Once they had an opening, everyone slowly made their way past the water where they could tend to the wounded. For the most part, they only suffered minor injuries that were being wrapped with bandages. It was their first major encounter as a unit, and even with the disadvantage of their positioning, they did quite well. Rook was pleased, but knew that overconfidence kills like poison. As they began to move forward, one of the spiders got back up and hissed loudly. Friend Tenkage turned and slowly moved on his target. He battered its attacks with his blade, and then by the time he threw his counterstrike, his allies converged on it and beat it down with a flurry of strikes. The coast looked to be clear again, at least for now. They did a thorough examination of everyone's wounds. Some of the fighter had worse injuries than they thought, so Rook ordered medical beds to be set up and forced the wounded to rest and recover while the rest of the men would stand guard. Minutes later, everything was assembled and they began taking shifts napping. They took the rest of the night to recover, and when the sun began to rise, the team rose and packed up. It was time to move on. They were lucky and didn't encounter any other spider clusters patrolling this area. The runners did their rounds and everyone gathered around the nearby path. They were getting closer. Everyone grouped up and moved as a unit up the hill, unsure of what to expect next. At the top of the incline, they saw the Bugmaster's lair and more spider clusters patrolling nearby. Instead of risking themselves being out of position and getting surrounded, Rook had Mac lead the rangers ahead to scout, with backup close behind if necessary. They were still in the clear, but Rook told them to wait while he used his old stealth skills to check the building. As he snuck up the ramp and approached the entrance, he was flooded with nostalgia of his previous encounter with the Bugmaster. Back then, he was weak and scared, but now he was much better prepared to face his adversary. As he entered the building, he could feel the Bugmaster's presence emanating above him. The number of spiders on the ground level were manageable, so Rook decided to get their attention and lead them down to his men. At the base of the ramp, he called for his men to charge in and turn the fight to the spiders. The rest of his forces sprinted up to meet him and charged into the giant creatures. Spiders were engaging from aerial assault onto the troops, trying to stop them from breaching the entrance. The men continued to fight back against the skin spiders, and their numbers overwhelmed their enemy, quickly beating them back. As the last skin spider fell, the men ran into the building to finish off the final beast that still stood. After that, Rook called them back outside to tend to their wounded. Rook ordered them to wait there while he snuck up to confront the Bugmaster himself. When Rook got closer, the Bugmaster turned and hissed at him like one of his beasts, hurling his curved blade at Rook. The battle was brief and silent, no spectacle, just some blocked shots and a crest of the falling sun. As Rook's falling sun fell down on top of him, the Bugmaster crumbled to the ground. Rook ran over to his unconscious body and saw that he had even more teeth in his inventory, one which was lucky. Rook pocketed the special tooth as a keepsake, disarmed the Bugmaster, and put his Meitu grade foreign saber in his inventory. After that, he hoisted his massive body over Rook's shoulder and told his men that their work was done and it was time to escape. They would regroup outside of the building and figure out the fastest way out of Arok before more spiders converged on them. The men who saw Rook running past looked at the Bugmaster in awe, but Rook was more concerned with the fighting outside where the Shek forces were standing guard. The Shek soldiers shrugged off attacks the best they could and cut down the spiders one by one while the reinforcements showed up to help clean up the rest. Each skirmish was chaotic as the sounds of their weapons clanged against the monsters and the spilling of spider blood was heard all around them until suddenly, the fighting was over again and they could collect themselves. After every fight, they tried to bandage all the wounded so they wouldn't falter in their escape. A patrolling spider was approaching Cyrus, and as he fired his crossbow, Green walked in front of him and got knocked unconscious from the blow. The rangers fell back and tried to take down the beast before it could reach them, but they were unsuccessful. Mac took out his blade and tried to defend himself, but the other men came to his aid and quickly cleaned up. Another spider patrol was dangerously close to them, so a group of fighters ran to beat them out. The samurai were able to fight them off, but their opponents were slowly wearing them down. Another nearby patrol appeared and approached them. Shia led the charge and roared as he began fighting while the rest of the Shek came in from behind to assist. Taking out each patrol individually was manageable, but the liberators couldn't fight forever. They needed an opening. There was a pathway that led to a clearing by the lake. Rook had everyone meet him there, and he peered over his map with Tao. The fastest way out was across the water back to their home, as long as they could swim it, that is. When they were about to step into the lake, a group of spiders emerged from the blood-red waters to greet them. If more spiders caught them in the water, it could be deadly, but the decision was already made and they finished off the cluster. It seemed like everywhere they turned, more spiders were showing up. Rook could see the exhaustion in the eyes of his men. They couldn't keep this up much longer. They split into groups to gang up one and finish off the remaining spiders. This was their opening to get home safe. They were almost completely across until they were ambushed by more spiders in the water. They struggled to get to shore to fight back, but as soon as their feet were in solid ground, the spiders were off their own turf. The soldiers waded in the waters to help protect the stragglers who lagged behind, getting the worst of the attack. They didn't have time to recover, so Rook yelled out for them to keep moving as another group began to close in on them. The runners fell behind the rest of the fighters as they poured in around the new cluster of spiders. They were exhausted at this point, but also felt more confident in dealing with these monsters after all this practice. The last spider was cut down and the group continued to flee Arok once more. As they moved further from the Bugmaster's lair, it seemed like they were encountering fewer mobilized spider bands. They continued moving as fast as they could through the heavy rain until they were finally out of Arok. Another group of spiders were lingering nearby, but didn't seem as interested in them. Maybe they could sense that their king had fallen. The team continued to travel all night and weren't met with any other threats. Could it be that the Bugmaster couldn't communicate with the spiders outside of his tower? Right now, all they cared about was returning to New Raleigh where Rook could interrogate the Bugmaster and see what he could uncover. A light rain poured over the Liberators as they arrived early the next morning at the gates of their home. Their mission was very successful, which was a good sign for Rook. He carried the Bugmaster into their training hall where they had spare empty cells. Rook locked the Bugmaster in a rusty cage and told him that he'd return soon. Are you ready to talk?
You, boy, you stole my voice. You ruined my plans.
What do you mean? Why were you summoning an army to go to the Ashlands? How were you even able to communicate with spiders like that?
You defeated me in single combat, thousands of years, and who bests me? None other than the common man. Tell me, child, do you believe in magic?
What?
No such thing as magic, boy. The power of ancient technology, now lost, gave me a gift to speak with my children. I called them and they listened. The location, which you deem Arok, it enhanced my voice. I could speak to them throughout this entire wasteland your kind inhabits.
I don't understand. Why use the spiders to terrorize people? Why would you keep your victims' teeth in a treasure chest? What kind of technology?
Of course you don't understand, boy. I am an ancient. Your lifetime has been a mere blink in the shadow of mine. Not even the preservers know about me. We created them. We created you and everything else that wanders aimlessly on this miserable moon. The bone implements of my victims, you say? You don't understand, boy. I could bring them all back if I had the technology that Catlon keeps hidden in the Ashlands.
The preservers? Who are the preservers? Listen, I've been to the Ashlands. It's nothing but wandering robots and destroyed technology. There's nothing of value there.
You speak as if you understand these things. I've had enough, boy. My voice isn't strong enough to call my children outside of Arok. You stole my precious map long ago and created a connection. Psychic link between us like I have with my children. A grievous oversight. Now you've ruined my plans to bring my people back. I've answered your questions. I'm now finished. Leave me to rot for all I care.
I don't understand. Wait, hey, I'm still talking to you, Bugmaster. Answer me. Fine, have it your way. I can't keep you here anyways. I've decided. I'm delivering you to the Shek tomorrow, and I'll let them decide your fate. You're right. You are finished. Rook returned the next morning to turn the Bugmaster over to the Shek. He couldn't risk keeping the Bugmaster in New Raleigh in case he was bluffing about his powers weakening. The majority of the New Raleigh forces would soon be off campaigning in the east and would be vulnerable to a massive attack by skin spiders. But the Shek, they weren't involving themselves with the war that would soon come on the east. They were still focusing on rebuilding infrastructure after the fight against the Holy Nation. They'd be able to guard the Bugmaster much more easily than Rook could. Plus, they had a hefty bounty for his capture, which would be more than enough for Rook to afford to join the Tech Hunters Guild. As Rook entered Squin, the gate guards applauded as their jaws dropped. They told him to take the Bugmaster to Asada. He was hoping to find her here. He made his way through the bustling market into the police station and approached the captain on duty. He examined Rook and his prize, but told him that he couldn't accept it here. He told Rook to find Bayan and Asada at Stack. Rook sighed as he scanned his map, seeing how much further Stack was from his current location. He thanked the ship captain and took off. He arrived at the end of the day and weaseled his way towards the HQ. The aftermath of the war left scars. It would take some time to rebuild everything anew. It made Rook think about their upcoming fight and the destruction that it would cause to overthrow a monarchy. It would be worth it though. They'll rebuild it, just like the Shek are doing here, he thought to himself. Rook entered the HQ and found Asada looking over Stack from her rooftop. She greeted Rook and was surprised to see who he had over his shoulder. I thought he'd have fangs like one of the other skin beasts, she said with a smile. Rook explained everything that happened in the past few days. She told Rook that he was a warrior unlike no other and that she agreed that it would be best to keep the Bugmaster in the heart of the Shek's home. If he were to summon a spider army, they wouldn't be able to penetrate the Shek forces who would crush them on their home turf. She told Rook to speak with Bayan, who would handle his payment. He found Bayan inside of the HQ and spoke with him. He congratulated Rook and asked Rook to hand over the Bugmaster. He tossed Rook a fat sack of 100,000 cats and heaved the bulky Bugmaster over his shoulder. Bayan placed him in a cell overlooking Stack so he could look upon what he wished to trample over. The Bugmaster was silent the entire time. In fact, no one ever caught him speaking minus when he communed with Rook telepathically. Rook wasn't sure if they'd ever truly understand who the Bugmaster is or what his intentions are, but he couldn't focus on that anymore. On his return back to New Raleigh, he spent 50,000 cats to join the Tech Hunters and hurried back so the Liberators could continue their plans for their march east. But when he arrived through the North Gate, Tao quickly approached him.
Rook, welcome home. I wanted to let you know that while you were gone, someone arrived here asking to speak with you in private immediately. They said you were friends and they're waiting to see you at HQ.
A friend, you say? Did they tell you their name?
No, but they have been patiently waiting since.
Thanks, Tal. I'll head over there now and see what's going on. Hello, I was told someone here is looking for me.
The legendary Rook. It really is you. You've changed a lot from when our paths first crossed, but my memory circuits haven't rusted. I can tell it's you, the one who united the Shek and overthrew the tyranny of the Holy Nation.
I'm sorry, do I know
The
you?
one who claims to have single-handedly snuck into the cannibal capital, defeating the cannibal Grand Wizard, and turning him in for a bounty.
Wait, it can't be. Are you?
That's right, Rook. I never had the opportunity to properly introduce myself. I'm Jinsei, former noble hydraulic knight, and now tech hunter. I have a proposition that I think you'd like to hear. Come, let us sit. There are many things I want to discuss with you.
I hope you enjoyed this episode. I want to thank my good friend Adam, who's voicing the legendary Jinsei. If you want to see some great gaming-related content, be sure to check out his channel linked in the description below. I want to thank all my patrons who are generously supporting my channel so that I can continue to focus on making more narrative videos like this. I greatly appreciate it. And as always, thanks for watching, and until next time, have a good one.